Good. Hey, thank you for having me again. It's good to see you guys. I won't take up too much of your time. I just kind of want to, relay how we work with home inspectors. So again, my name is Tim Shotzberger. My company's Homeland Environmental. We're working on our 20th year right now. We also have Homeland Lab, which Homeland Environmental owns. Homeland Labs, which does water, wastewater, and mold. The lab's only about 7 years old. I wouldn't say it's an infant company, but it's certainly growing more than the environmental business is right now. And just so you all know, I'm also the president of the Greater Baltimore Board of Realtors. So I kind of come from that perspective as well. I'm a licensed agent, non-practicing. I had to have my license to go through the line for the presidency. But first kind of option that we can work with home inspectors. And again, this isn't for everybody, but it does work very well with some, especially some people kind of starting out or looking into new lines of service. So, we try to partner with home inspectors in terms of being a subcontractor for them. Which is the best way to do it versus just telling somebody to call us, because there can be an overlap of services and we don't want that conflict. But, some of you guys, I know that you're doing your own septic inspections and we probably can't help you out too much there, but, we also do well yield testing. We do water sampling, obviously, sewer inspections. Those cameras can be expensive. Not everybody might have one. They might want to contract us to do sewer inspections until they can build their own line of business where it makes sense to invest in an expensive camera. We work with some home inspectors that with radon, where they don't want to go 2 counties away to have to pick that up in 2 days. And our service area is pretty big. We go all the way from Hagerstown to Southern Maryland, St. Mary's County to the Eastern Shore. So we can gobble up a lot of that space that is a little bit difficult for some other people to get to. So we try to work with everybody in all those capacities. And, doing so, we try to help them learn the business. There are a couple of home inspection companies that did exactly this, where they didn't have sewer inspections, but they started contracting us. They built their line of business, and now they operate a successful line of sewer line inspections. So it's possible. The other thing we do is the lab. So, if you don't want to contract with us because you're doing your own water sampling, your own mold investigations or own mold inspections, I'm hoping that our lab could help you. And I started my lab because labs were too slow. It took 5 days to get a lead sample back when I was doing this, and I was tired of getting the agents calling me on day 2, 3, 4, and 5, asking me where the lead was. So we turn around lead samples in 2 days right now. We have 4 locations, not close to everybody, but Waldorf, Annapolis, Towson, and then Bel Air. It's actually Forest Hill up in Harford County. And then we also offer these shipping kits. So we have one customer in Chesapeake City, way over in Cecil County, and he picks up shipping kits. He ships his samples to us. We get it next day. He's getting his lead results back for his FHA sample 2 days after that. And he was telling me this week that he's just blowing the mind of his competition. They're all waiting 6 and 7 days for lead. The realtors are unhappy with his competition, and they're using him for the home inspection because he's turning around a lead sample faster than other companies. True story. And I have some other notes here. Not really sell myself, but I just really want you guys to be aware of some regulations that are going through, and maybe this entices you to kind of get in some of these service lines. But first, septic inspections were regulated as of January 1st. Septic inspectors are now licensed. We have to fill out a form that's made by MDE. It's an awful form, but we have to fill it out. So that's something that's very new. There's some more education hours for that, and it's going to be harder to grow septic inspector employees just because of the educational requirements. 3 years ago, Annapolis passed a bill that says that every landlord on a well property has to sample their water for their tenant. I don't think any landlords are really doing that right now in Maryland, but I know a lot of home inspectors have connections with property managers. If you guys want me to send you this bill that you can forward to property managers, I'm happy to do that. I will leave my email in the chat before I get out of here. But if you have those relationships, you're protecting them. It can be as simple as just a potability sample to make sure that they're adhering to this now 3-year-old law that says that this water sample has to happen once every 3 years. Third thing, you might find this is interesting. The Maryland Real Estate Commission, MREC, is pushing for a bill to require radon testing in Maryland for sale transactions. Montgomery County kind of has a bill in place that maybe some of us are happy with that, some aren't, but it looks like MREC is going to push for every property to have a radon inspection, and maybe they have to sign a waiver, but I think that's good news for all of us. I don't think any of us would be too unhappy to hear that. Fourth, there was a mold bill passed this year. The only thing that the mold bill said was we're going to form a collaborative, a group of people are going to come together and figure out what kind of mold regulations we need. I believe, just because the mold out that we have and what we know, I believe that's going to be industry shaking. I believe it's going to be very close to DC. And I think the way that mold is practiced in Maryland now is probably going to be gone. We're not going to practice it the same way. DC requires more licensing, more testing, more sampling. It's good for business because it's going to drive up the price, but it does take a lot more education to kind of, be able to adhere to those standards. And then the last thing, which is just a speculation on my part, but other states are starting to pass sewer inspection regulations. I don't know if there's a requirement that you have to be a plumber or what these regulations are, but it would be nice for us to fall back on, what passes and what fails. Because right now there's no standards. We can't say fail because there's no guy in authority to give us that power. And a lot of agents have gotten frustrated with years. So I'm sorry if I talk too much, but I always appreciate your time. I'm going to put my email in the chat and I'm here for questions. Thank you, Hollis.